Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Insurance Town. I'm the Mayor, Heath Shearon, and I'm host of this podcast, and I'm so glad you're here hanging out with me today because first of all, I just love you guys, and I appreciate you. Second of all, I really enjoyed this conversation that I just had with my man, Thomas Mann. My man, Thomas Mann. Anyway, we had a great conversation just about operational technology and tech ops, I think is the terminology we used, and finding the right technology to help you with your operations in your business, with your sales, with everything, really. We just had a fun conversation, and I love these. As you know, I'm leaning more into my tech nerddom. Is that the word? Anyway, and so just really enjoyed it. So, speaking of tech nerddom, I gotta, say I love my sponsors for this show, and one of them being Canopy Connect, because they do so much for my audience, for you. If you're new to this and you never heard this before, stop what you're doing right now. Go to usecanopy.com/Heath and go get a demo, get a discount, take advantage of being a citizen of Insurance Town. Tell them I sent you, and tell them you want a discount, and tell them you want a demo and all the things, because what they do with intake forms, what they do with collecting information is just game changer, next level. With one click, you can get deck pages, loss runs, driver's list, everything you need to quote a prospect. So bring that into your tech stack and bring that into your processes and workflows. I think it'll make a game changer move in your agency. Also, Smart Choice. I love having Smart Choice as a almost like day one sponsor of my show, because they love working with the agents. They love working with independent agents, and they've been around forever. And it's no wonder that they are the fastest growing agency network, hands down, because they do what they do with no annual fees, no setup fees. They help you get higher commissions, lower premium thresholds. Gosh, guys, 10,000 agencies across the country use them or work with them and partner with them. 11 billion in written premium, and it's probably more than that now. This copy was written like a year ago, but phenomenal. Go check them out, smartchoiceagents.com. I'm going to jump out of the way and let you hear this phenomenal conversation that I just had with my main man, Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann, what's going on, brother? How are you, my friend? There's so many connections there, as I've heard about you from Carrie, from Lindsay, from Caleb, from all of the different connections we have. There's a lot of connections. Hayden, just a minute ago, we were talking about. It's like the Kevin Bacon 7 degrees of separation. There's something real there, Thomas. I'm so glad we're finally getting to record together.
I'm thinking 7 degrees of the mayor. Like, we can get a campaign going on this. I'm sure we can do a diagram. It's real, but absolutely, man. I'm glad to be on.
Dude, 100%. And I know they listen, so I got to give a shout out to Carrie and Lindsay. And thank you for the introduction. I love those two dearly. They teach me so much on a regular. Lindsay teaches me how to be cool, and Carrie teaches me how to be professional. So I really appreciate that about them. And I know Carrie's going to be upset and be like, I'm cool too. You are, but she definitely is amazing. You got a good group that you work with there. So I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to hear about your journey a little bit. But beforehand, I hear you got another journey that you're about to step into, and that's you got a baby coming.
Yes, sir. I do.
That is awesome.
And, any day now.
And it's your first.
Number one. It's the great unknown, for sure.
Oh my gosh, get ready. So is this like how far? Like, I hear it's coming like soon. Are we talking like tomorrow? Or are we talking like a couple of weeks from now or months?
We're near the finish line, brother. So we're probably within a 2-week window.
Dude.
For sure. 10 days. Could be tomorrow.
I hear you.
10-ish days, something like that.
Okay, yeah. I will tell you a couple of things real quick. Let's make this the Dad Town podcast for just a second. The whole go bag, if you've heard the story of a go bag and have a go bag ready, that's a real thing. Like, don't be stuck without a go bag. Have that ready.
Got it. That's in the truck.
Good.
Check.
Number 2, if she's uncomfortable, it doesn't matter if you are or not. You got to make sure she's comfortable. And she's going to hate the way she looks for a while. Get ready for that. Like, if she's not already that way, my feet are swollen. This looks bad. That looks like she's going to have all the things. Number 3, what I would say, get up in the middle of the night, take the feedings. Don't play the whole, I'm tired. Yeah, get your pen and paper ready. It doesn't matter how tired you get up in the middle of the night and you feed that baby. That's a special time, man. That was some of my favorite memories with all 3 of my children. And, the whole midnight stuff, like they get up in the middle of the night or they're crying or whatever. Love those moments. Or when they try to crawl in bed with you, or they want to come talk in the middle of the night about whatever, or you could feel someone staring at you at the end of the bed and you just open your eyes and there they are. I don't know how many times, but I look back on those memories. I'm like, man, those are the best. My son and he would come be staring at me. I could feel him staring at me, and we would get up and he would just be like, Dad, I just want some cookies and milk or a peanut butter sandwich or whatever. We'd go have midnight snacks in the middle of the night, and then I'd go tuck his butt back in bed. And anyway, those are some fond memories. So take advantage of those.
Hey, is he your oldest?
Yeah. My son's my oldest, and then I got 2 daughters. Kids are the best, man. Kids are absolutely the best. So good luck to you. You having a boy or a girl? Do you know?
We don't know. No, man, we're going old school, man. We're just going to figure it out. We got our name list for both, and gonna enjoy the ride.
Heck yeah, bro. The other thing I would say is don't ever turn down diapers.
That one also, it's a unique perspective, Heath. You saw me get my pen out, but we're not the absolute last of our friends to have kids, right? But we're firmly in like the last wave,
yeah,
right? So we've fortunately had a good, we've seen a couple of missteps. We've seen we crushed it. So we've got some good, intel going in as much as you can get.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Those people that have the baby showers and they'll put all these things on a list. I would say the first 10 things on your list should be diapers, 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 and diapers. Cause those suckers are expensive and babies go through them quick, bro. And so, alrighty. Dad Town podcast over. Tell me, take a walk down memory lane with me, Thomas, and tell me a little bit about you and what led you to today.
So on a podcast with you, Heath, I'd be remiss to not bring up the fact that we both have the multi-generational insurance in the blood thing, right? So my journey, I'm based in North Carolina, right? Born and raised. My dad was a career captive agent here. And my indoctrination to the business began really at the dinner table with, deductibles and coverage points. But it started, formally when I became a agent for that same captive carrier here in NC. And that was a great learning experience because it was multi-line, life and health were a component. It was all the things.
Yeah.
As it became more interesting to me to do more in the commercial arena, I saw that you had to go indie, if you wanted to play with serious commercial. So went to an indie agency and kind of became a tech guy, there in so specifically a product near and dear to both of us, Agency Zoom, and started doing more and more of that, owning that, such that I ended up going to work with Kat and crew before it was a Vertifor product, and ultimately ended up running the customer success team over there, which formed a lot of fantastic relationships with agents and really kind of put it all together for me from a nuts and bolts side of being an agent and in production to the process side of things, which is more the shift to what's got me here today. So that was the first phase of how did you come from agency world to tech guy, and then to make it more interesting, Heath, we after that after the Vertifor acquisition, which Vertifor treated us great. There was nothing with that, just lifelong small business and startup guy. Vertifor is a much larger entity, right? And if you're used to this and go from kind of speedboat to cruise ship, you say, I kind of want a little earlier stage again. So I joined Donna AI, another InsurTech, as their director of customer success. Had a great run, phenomenal team, phenomenal product. But what I learned, Heath, actually drove what got us to this conversation. And so after helping literally hundreds of agencies implement a product and weave it into their workflow, their process, what I realized was what agencies needed more than just a product was someone to help them build the ecosystem, right? And that is kind of what got us to interagency focus and the Wallaces and all of this was they had a respected brand, around being a trusted resource for agencies, and wanted to get, more into a holistic agency maximization piece than just the phenomenal financial guidance, CFO work, et cetera, they were known for. So that's what got us to today. And, a topic you and I had kind of chopped up before around enablement in an agency, specifically for technology and operations. And believe it or not, Heath, that's the short version.
Yeah, there you go. Well, us Southern boys, we like to talk, and so I get it.
Yes,
I totally get it. Say what?
And that's something, Heath, that comes up a lot. It's a very distinct, different intro call format with a Southern agent versus someone who's not got our attention span
100%.
for rabbit trail.
It's funny. You and I were talking off air about just the format of this show, and I was telling you, it's such a squirrel thing because that's the way my brain operates. And I think some of that. I would love to see a study to see how much ADHD in the South versus anywhere else. I just feel like there's got to be more ADHD people in the South just because, I don't know. I just think there's got to be some connection there. But getting into some of the things you talked about, I had my pen and paper out ready to go because I wanted to hear some of this because you said some things that, I wanted to dive into just a little bit more. And that was, as you talk about, going from the speedboat to the cruise ship and some of those, analogies, which I love that analogy. I use it quite a bit. When you talk through that, for that transition for you, a lot of people have that struggle, or not struggle, but have that same thought process going from startup and everything has to be done yesterday. And that's like a whole different adrenaline rush than going into that, comfort and, everything's there. It's established, there's that safety net there and things do move slower though. But, for some of us, and, I'm an old timer now, being at 25 years almost, I like that comfort and being able to have, the processes in place and all the things there. Is that kind of like you mentioned it earlier, but is that kind of one of the things that started that transformation for you to going from the agency to kind of tech guy, the operations guy, some of that kind of stuff?
It absolutely was, Ethan. I think to pull that thread a little further, I think it does oftentimes mirror life stage, right? I mean, I would not go so far as to call yourself an old timer, but all of that to say that I think scale, there's a parallel to agencies here, I feel like, right? Scale changes as we as humans scale, right? And what you connect with professionally and personally therein, I think. So not to, throw us back to Dad Town, but there's definitely, I think, two separate threads going. But for me, what the real thing that wasn't specific to Vertifor, but how that transition came about, the cruise ship and speedboat, it wasn't so much about everything has to be done yesterday and that's such an adrenaline rush in a startup, though that's true. It's more if we see something that needs to be resolved, you can just plug it in and fix it. Right. Whereas there are then layers and approval and sign off and this and that. And, that's a very different world. So I think that was kind of at the time, the what drove me to, look for an earlier stage. But, it wasn't a Vertifor thing. It's just
right.
If you go from a 35 person org to a how many thousand person
right
org?
No, I hear you. I just wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, because on that same level, like Zoom, agency Zoom, and some of the tech you were working with, even with Donna and some other things, was way, in my opinion, a little bit more of that sales focus, that service focus, where now with tech ops, you're in a different arena, a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, that's a good point. But to me, it might be a different ball game, but we're playing in the same
Sure.
arena, right? Meaning there was a sales focus with Agency Zoom, but there's always been a focus on optimizing the org, right? And then in my role as customer success, namely, are you using this right? Is it working for you? Are you finding value in this product? Right? Those questions and answers are transitive across, any park. And I think that's what got us here is specifically the operations piece. I want to circle that for a minute. Operationally, what I found, it would be you're an agency owner. I've trained you and your leadership team on a piece of software, and you're ready to take the training wheels off, like you're ready to launch,
Yep.
right? And it's okay, Heath. So you guys are, we've gone through like the tutorials, the help section. We've done several live trainings. Like you guys got it. So what we need to do now is embed this in a process, because one of the things that I think could be a soundbite from this is nothing is fully launched until it's embedded in a process.
Yeah.
So in that vein, right, it was agents oftentimes have what I call micro processes, right? It would be, so Heath, tell me about how you guys run your commercial renewal flow. And then there'd be kind of some shifting, scratch the back of the neck.
Yep.
And the answer was there wasn't a singular flow, right? We had a 25-year veteran commercial account manager. We had one that's been here 5 months, and we got 2 or 3 in between, and they all kind of have their version.
Sure.
And that can certainly work in an agency, but it's hard to scale that. And it's hard to put a piece of software in to smooth that if there's no standardization. So that's really, Heath, where the sales focus, quick, and enablement to a more like procedural steps 1 through 25 was born, because I ended up doing a lot of that work with agents, spitballing in the trenches to come up with a flow that worked for them.
Well,
and that's kind of where this whole process at Agency Focus was born.
Yeah, well, I think you're a good person to have those conversations coming from that agency background, from that multi-generational background, being able to like sit at the kitchen table and having those conversations. I always say holidays were boring at my household because all we talked about was insurance and, things of that nature. And it's funny you bring this up. I think it's sometimes a God thing, but like yesterday I posted about seeing my first cousin who's in the industry now at an event I spoke at last week in Dallas. It's just funny to see that. But yeah, having those conversations, at the dinner table and growing an agency and being, in that captive world, indie world, then getting in a software like Agency Zoom as a sales focus, I think that helps you to have those conversations and say, hey, I've been there. I let's walk through this. And I think you're right. In agencies, which I think is always fascinating when you walk into an agency and you see, if you're looking at producer bullpen, you may see one that, it looks like what you talked about. There may be a 25-year vet sitting next to someone that just got in, brand new green. Then you got someone that maybe transitioned from, they were a plumber a few weeks ago and now, they're wanting to get into this. Or maybe there was a CSR that was like, this girl should be, or this guy should be a producer now, instead of a CSR. You got all kinds of different levels of, experience, and they all do things differently. That 25-year vet's used to writing stuff down, I almost said a bad word, stuff down on a napkin and passing it across the desk. And then you got this other guy that comes in and is like, I can only do things behind a keyboard. And you got the service person who's coming from that. I could go on and on and on, but to be able to have that standard workflow, I think you're the perfect guy to talk to him about that. Have you seen that people respond pretty well to that, knowing your background?
Frankly, Heath, I think that's my calling card. It's the, hey, software guy, agency guy, 2 flavors, captive, indie. Like I've worn the hats, I've sat in the seats, and here's what I can help you with, right? Here's how I can pass this along. So, which, I make no bones about, Heath, the fact that I've not been an independent principal, right? Like it's different. The piece that's unique about being an indie principal is you're not just an agent, right? You are a business owner, and building that like mental
Yeah.
framework is a lot of what I think we're doing in ops and this and that, right? Because especially if you talk, Heath, I know you've talked to a zillion as well, early stage scratch agent folks, their top producer, their chief janitor, they're this and that, right? And they're still trying to put these frameworks and this tech stack and all of this together and getting to a place, to a scale. Back to the thread about cruise ships, right? You've got to get this speedboat large enough. You got to go from a John boat to a 25 footer to get to a place where you can work on the business, right? And
100%.
that's where a lot of this kind of becomes more important, because it's not that you want to remove individuality and you want to make people interchangeable in your agency, but you want to give them the guardrails and the framework to say, all right, Heath, you can, like, here's what you want you to produce, this and that, but like, you're still the mayor. You've got a persona, you have your thing, and we don't want to, dull that shine, but we got to do it the insurance town agency way.
Yeah.
Right.
So whether it is sales or operations, it all comes down to, like you said, we're playing the same arena. We all want to be profitable. We all want to have the capacity. We all want to do all of the things. So we're all like aligned in the same general area at the end of the day. We want to have that profitability. So, talk to me about what you're working with agencies on aligning that technology and operations and sales and profitability and all of those things. That's a lot to try to align in one agency, and it's probably more than just one consult call. It's probably a process and a lot of different conversations.
Yes, sir.
So,
And
how are you working through some of that, and what are some things? Let's put this on the bottom shelf, and maybe you can give some advice and maybe some freebies out there for people that are listening to say, all right, let me get my pen and paper out. Thomas, I hear you. What can I do today, maybe to, maybe start aligning or think about that a little differently?
so there's I'll give you something you and I had talked about offline. And this is something I have agents, good friends that will tell you, oh, that's me all day. We talked about the term shiny object syndrome.
Oh yeah, my favorite
right?
subject.
And the thing is, that's very real. And the pace at which technology, not just InsurTech, tech period, has always accelerated, but definitely since the advent of generative AI, right? Like ChatGPT going live, et cetera. We've seen that pace change pretty drastically. And it's easy to be like, oh, this or that, is gonna blow the roof off this place. Well, that's why you can't touch tech without ops. Because here's the thing. There is no magic bullet piece of software that's going to revolutionize your agency. It's all in the adoption and the execution of said platform. The greatest piece of tech that ever existed is just going to be a drain on the P&L if your people don't use it, right? So it is a lot to align, Heath, and yes, there's a process, and I'm very cognizant of, because I've heard it many times. It's not, hey, Heath, what do you want to work on in your agency? If you say everything, it becomes one of those, if nothing's urgent, or if everything's urgent, nothing's urgent kind of thing. So, you gotta pick your rocks, right? Little shout out EOS there. But anyway, if you're going to discipline, I would say, Heath, is the first thing. It's like, hey, we're going to tune out the noise and we're going to hone in for 30, 60, 90 days on X, whether that X is CRM, whether that X is integrations between our AMS and our other ecosystem. That's the thing we're going to focus on, and we're not going to worry about this new GPT or this voice AI tool or whatever until X is done. So that's the roadmap, right? Is one. The shiny object syndrome, it's something I say a lot, Heath, and I'll be curious your perspective on this. Is a term like use your tools. So instead of chasing like the magic bullet tech stack, get ROI from what you've got. Like a lot of what I do and with the alignment is, how do we optimize, how do we maximize things we're already paying for? If you have two platforms and there's more than say 30% overlap in their functionality, which one do my people like, which one are my people actually going to implement and feel, right? We can probably cut one of these. So another thing, along with use your tools, here's another where people in general, I imagine your personal inbox, Heath, is like this. Mine certainly is. There's all these pieces of technology, software, personal and professional, that we use. They send release notes and feature updates. And what do we do with those? Rarely read them. Like, know the additional functionality. Like, I feel like agents get their eyes locked on the horizon and the shiny object, and they might not realize that stuff that they've been using for years has a new functionality that they're searching for because they haven't kept
Right.
up with what innovations we're making. So
Yeah, that's one of the things I've learned about working with a tech company, and you probably saw the same thing too, working with different tech companies. There's always revisions, there's always updates, there's always things going on that you may not know about. So yeah, I would agree with that. And one of the talks that I give, a lot, talking about these things is, when it comes to technology, my big soapbox is sit down with your team, ask them, where's our pain points? Well, where's the issues? Where's the bottlenecks? Where's our issues? And so many times I hear of, agency owners or, decision makers will just go, like you said, shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, this is so cool. I heard Thomas on stage talking about this, and man, he blew me away with this talk. We got to get this immediately, just because Thomas said I got to have it. I got to have it. The other guy down the street's got it. This agency's got it. This guy in my mastermind's got it. I got to have it. But yet it doesn't really help your agency, so nobody's going to use it. And so I would agree, use your
absolutely.
tech. The other thing would be, as far as getting your team involved, bring them in on demos. I don't know how often you talk about that, but if you've got Sally, Susie, Tommy, and Billy that are in your agency that would be the users of this, bring them in on demo and be like, hey, what do y'all think about this? And you could tell immediately when you see their eyeballs or their facial expressions, if they're like, oh my God, this is amazing or whatever, or if it's like they're bored and they got their arms crossed, they're probably thinking, this is BS. I'm never going to use this. We could do this right now with the tech we got.
So 1,000%, Heath, and thank you for making a point. I do in fact talk about this, and I highly encourage any agency leaders that hear this. He's 100% right. Bring in the people to the conversation before you sign up for a tool that are ultimately going to work in it or on it every day.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter. We talked about the 25-year vets and the person who was a plumber 3 weeks ago. If that plumber is going to be using it, and they've only been with your org a month, that you should, get their perspective. Right. It's one of those things, Heath, where if you don't get their buy-in before you roll out a process or build a process, it's almost doomed to fail.
Yep.
Right? Or at least it's doomed to be adopted poorly. Because here's, you talk about, oh, Thomas, was talking about this thing on stage and it blew my mind and guys were getting it. And, agency execs, like, that's a very common theme. We were at X event or this mastermind and gotta have it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, team, I signed us up. Here you go. But guess what? If your team lead for commercial lines or personal lines is not bought in, guess what? You're going to just kind of, oh, I didn't have a great experience with that piece of software. We paid for it for like 6 months and we just didn't see any ROI. All right, Heath, well, tell me what was different. Why did you guys not get, why didn't you, see any ROI? Well, I guess we never really did much with it. And to your point, a lot of the time that's because your team wasn't bought in. So definitely bring them in sooner and let them feel like they have a vote in the process rather than that top-down approach. And you are going to see a lot more confidence in the tech you deploy. To me, that's a slam dunk. And, another thing is, you said just tips for pen and paper. Here's something I'm big on. You should design, your processes and your tech stack around the customer journey, right? Like, you need to be thinking of how all of this works as a ecosystem from the perspective of Heath has never heard of my agency before, right? He's not even a prospect. He's a suspect up through, we targeted him, we marketed to him, we quoted him, we bound it up through his first renewal. And then, speaking of agency Zoom, what's the process for that second renewal? Because we don't just want to recycle what we did for renewal one. There need, like, the content you give them, the heads up, the market updates, zoom out that
Yep.
far, and you'll be ahead of 80%, of folks trying to implement stuff. If you think of it from that outside perspective, bring your team in, then start evaluating tools, right?
Yep.
Then once you've picked a tool, if you don't have a defined process, like you talked about your soapbox, one soapbox for me, Heath, and I've talked about this with several other folks, that we know, and I've gotten agreement. So I think you will too. If you don't have your processes clearly defined, you're in the wrong stage of, the tech stack or this tool or this or that.
Yep.
Like, the core foundation's got to be solid before we go bolting on, everything under the sun.
Yeah.
Bless
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that 100%. Talking about, and I love, the tech ops, getting into some of this conversation. Talk to me a little bit about, we've already gotten to some of these, but again, bottom shelf in some of this, are there some other common pitfalls or things that you're seeing that some of the agents, obviously the best agencies in the country, listen to this show, but there may be some new people that are listening now. What are some of those common pitfalls that you're seeing that we haven't spoke about that maybe I'm not even thinking of? Like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that probably is a pitfall or something they're not thinking of.
So one of those we already touched on, which is a people thing.
Yep.
Did you bring your people in before your platform or process? That one is a major misstep, if you will. But another one, Heath, that people might not think about, and we touched on it briefly. I'm a big fan of, you've heard me say ecosystem. I don't know what the word count is, 3 or 4 times, right? It's all connected in your business. And a common pitfall there is, this tech is really exceptional, but does it work with what I'm already married to? Meaning, if I'm not willing to change my AMS, right? If I'm not willing to move my CRM, is this going to be a cumbersome addition, or is this actually going to drive any efficiency? Because I'm not just trying to rephrase shiny object syndrome here, but is this actually solving for something, or is it tech because it's cool, or someone said I had to have that on the podcast? Yeah. So define what this is solving, but then also, is there integration here? If there isn't, Heath, an integration, say, 360 Vertipore products, AMS 360 and Agency Zoom, perfect marriage, right? But if I want to use a system that isn't a native integration from the developer of these products, can I use a Zapier? Can I use a tool like Make to make it work for me, right? So if you go kind of through this checklist and get to wow, this new tech is awesome, but it's a complete silo that is going to have no data back and forth, that my team's going to have another screen up all the time. Yeah, that's a major pitfall. It doesn't matter how cool it is, because again, you only see ROI when someone who's not just the principal, looking at the reporting section, uses this piece of tech. So
yeah, what you're talking about, like I've seen this behind the curtains a little bit. Talk to me for a second as we start to wrap up a little bit about the tech ops scorecard that you guys work through. And when you're sitting down with agencies, walk me through that a little bit.
A lot of these concepts, are going to be borne out in that. You talked about, I'm sure it's more than one call. It definitely is. There's definitely a process, but it's with this tech ops scorecard. And this scorecard is more tech than ops, because there are more pieces to evaluate. The ops piece is, do you have, a process for this, which you've heard me harp on? And this is another one, another low hanging bottom. There needs to be an owner other than the principal of the piece of tech or initiative in the agency, right? If you have been out of production for a while and you've been working on your agency and you're like, I got to have this, someone in the trenches has got to have ownership of evaluating, launching, getting team feedback of this tool. So that's the ops part. The tech part is very holistic of, we're going to evaluate integrations, right? Do these things connect? Have you created silos knowingly or unknowingly? So integration, communications, right? Like, we're going to touch on, are our calls recorded? Are there transcripts we can get? Are they put in the AMS, right? There's an E&O component to this. Like, check, 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 check. Then have we defined, I talked about what are we married to? Have we defined our core systems? Like, have we been, jumping AMS every 18 months, or like, are we locked in with Epic, or we're locked in with 360 or Hawksoft, right? Like, this is a core piece of our system. So when you define these are things we're not willing to budge on, then you can say, all right, these pieces need to change because there is no integration, right? Or so it is a very comparatively brief mini best practice of tech, right? Like, do you have two-way integrations? Are you proactively communicating? Are you using automation? Have you done any data workflows via Zapier, which you don't always have to use Zapier, right? But are you always trying to? Here's another like core thing. I'm a soapbox for me, Heath. Are you always trying to push the lowest value work to the least effort, least expensive way you can execute that, right? So when we talk about automation, it's not just in agency Zoom, 90 days before renewal, Heath gets this email and this text, right? It's, have we taken this duplicative entry, this just keying data, and pushed it from a US based licensed core employee, step down to a VA resource, step down to, a Zapier doing this, step down to RPA, where it's really truly hands off and there's an outsourced, company that monitors this. Like, that's a stair step approach. But, from an agency leadership perspective, if you are always looking at, do I have my core people doing the highest value task? We're multi-generational guys. We've both been in the production role. We've been in the agency role. It's always going to be a human business, a relationship business. It's managing your relationships, managing your book, client-facing tasks. That's always going to be A1 priority, right? So all of the other stuff that we in an agency have to execute daily, weekly, monthly, let's keep pushing it down.
Love it. And I loved, when I came to the website before we ever recorded, seeing the scorecard, seeing what you guys are doing from that perspective, because I know a lot of people out there know Carey and know Agency Focus, from that standpoint, but to know that there's a whole nother side to it, in the last couple of minutes, I would love for you to talk a little bit about if there's someone that wanted to book a call with you or wanted to talk about some of this with you a little bit further. Is that something they need to have some existing contract with Carey or with, Agency Focus team from that perspective? Or can they be a brand new green, someone coming for the first time and say, hey, I just want to work with Thomas? How does that all work?
So two things. If they can reach out to me directly, and I'm sure we can, as part of dropping this podcast, throw my LinkedIn out there, contact info. You mentioned the website. There is a tech ops page on there. They can actually book a call on my calendar directly right from there. But no, and I appreciate you asking, you don't have to have, an existing relationship or have been a past customer of Agency Focus. If you say, hey, what Carey and that team over there are doing on the financial side is awesome, but I am a former CPA turned principal, and I have, I'm good on the financial side, but I don't know anything about tech, or I could use some help defining my workflows, getting a knowledge base together, making an operating manual. You can come right to Thomas.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate that. So would that be the best way to find you would be through LinkedIn, or would it be through like your email address at I think it's thomas@agency-focus.com, but
either, I'm multi-channel like you, Heath. So, go to the website, book it, and we'll have a 30-minute Zoom already ready to go. And Thomas, you mentioned it, the Agency Focus. A lot of people miss that hyphen, agency-focus.com. And then, and on LinkedIn.
There you go.
There's not a ton of Thomas Manns in insurance yet. I'm still a fairly unique name. Not quite Heath Shearon, but
whatever. Yeah, I do think if you want to, obviously, go down to the show notes here, you'll see Thomas's, they'll see the thing, click the thing, and it'll go straight to his LinkedIn. And, make sure you do that. And, at least just check it out. Book the intro call, take the 30 minutes. If not, you'll make a new friend in Thomas Mann. Like, why not? We Southern boys love new friends. So click the book an intro call, reach out on LinkedIn. Be super cool. Thomas, I can't thank you enough for finally, we get to connect and do this. And so now, I've had 3 friends from Agency Focus now on the podcast. So I think that's a lot of fun. And hopefully I'm going to see you next month. I'm speaking at the North Carolina conference for Big I. So hopefully you'll be around. I know Carrie's going to be speaking as well. Man. So I'm pumped about that.
Not to throw another shameless plug, Heath, I'll also be doing a breakout session. So
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
I think we're competing. So, if you've heard me enough on the podcast and you want to go hear Thomas, go hear Thomas. Or if you want to come see me, I think we're competing for time with that, but that's okay. No big deal.
Absolutely. Heath, I really appreciate you having me on and the spotlight you put on Agency Focus, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah, dude, thanks.